Another day, another video is made talking about the state of the modern game, and today I wanted to react to ShadowRabbitYGO. Main reason why everyone hates Yu-Gi-Oh right now is their hope. I have not watched this video. I'm vaguely familiar with the creator, but regardless, I will have the links in the pinned comment description down below. Please go show them some love. We're going to be talking about this today and reacting to it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy who's many YouTube channels. Let's hear what she has to say, okay? Let's get into it.
Alright, so it's no secret that a lot of players are feeling super burned out by the current metagame.
Now, I know we're 6 seconds in. I'm sorry to pause, but hey, you know what? That's reaction videos, okay? I feel bad for pausing so often, but I'm not. We have to give commentary and transformative content throughout, okay? I'm somebody personally who is just learning, has been on a journey learning about the modern game, and I do understand a lot of the issues that's going on. It's just my issue is when we talk about specific cards, I'm still not up to date, and I'm still learning the brand new archetypes and things like that.
Whether you're playing online or at events or literally just watching from the sidelines, something feels very off. And today we're going to be breaking down the core reasons of why people are unsatisfied with how the game is played right now. From turn skips to how necessary hand traps are, and also the impact of power cards that warp games all on their own.
Oh no, that guy just lost his soul. I don't know what that was.
Complaining. We're looking at why these trends are so frustrating, how we got here, and also what needs to change to make the game more fun and competitive in the future as well.
And yeah, I'm glad that she's going to talk about this because this is something that I could absolutely dive into because I was somebody who has played this game competitively the entirety of my childhood. I played just about every archetype that there was, and then I took off because I had a lot of problems with what the game is becoming. But with the reintroduction of different formats like hat format, Edison format, that pulled me back into the game. And while I love the other formats, I've been learning a little bit more about the modern game as I have been playing myself.
If this topic interests you, make sure to continue watching and also like the video if you enjoy it, as well as share your thoughts in the comments down below. So let's jump straight into it. So first up, turn skips. It's actually crazy how many unhealthy cards there are in the metagame right now. If I just start listing them off the top of my head, from Ouroboros to Harpy's Featherstorm, obviously Statue, Protoss, like...
This is the problem that I was talking about. I can talk about the state of the game. I can talk about the problem with, like, certain kind of cards, like, you know, turn skips and hand traps, things like that. That I can talk about. But the problem is, once we dive into these specific cards, I'm not exactly as up to date on them.
You could just go on and on and on, and all of these cards are mainly played in different decks. So if you take a look at the metagame as a whole, you can see that every single one of the competitive decks has to have an unfair turn skip card to be able to compete. And that's a huge issue all on its own. And in my opinion, all of these cards should be banned on the ban list.
I agree with that completely. Any turn skip card. What? Who thought that was a good idea? Let's be real. There's things about this game, and the problem is, like, Konami, there are a lot of great minds over there, and they've created a game that we've all loved for so many years. So I feel bad when I critique some of these things, but I can't help but critique it. You know? Like, how could you possibly think that was a good idea to have cards like that?
And please don't say that cards like Protoss, etc. are...
Okay, hang on, let me read this card, okay? Cannot be normal summoner set, must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes from your graveyard and or face up on the field. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can declare 1 attribute on the field, destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute. Also, until the end of the turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that attribute. You can only use this effect once per turn. I hate effects like that, man.
More, because a lot of players have that argument. Oh, if you're resolving Protoss, then you're winning already. I don't think we should be trying to justify the existence of those cards and trying to say that we're okay with them being in the format because our opponent is winning already. A lot of times, specifically, these cards are game-changing, and that should not be the case.
I look at it this way. There shouldn't be a thing, in my opinion, there shouldn't be a thing, at the very least, very, very minimal things. Like, I remember back in the day when I was playing, you could... But even then, I really, really hated playing against things like Skill Drain, the Shadow Mirrors, the Barrier Statues. There are times where, like, maybe the Barrier Statue isn't exactly a good example because that's like a card with 1,000 attack that's something you can get over. But there shouldn't be things in a game that stops my opponent from playing the game. Where is the fun in that? Honestly, where is the fun in that?
If you're playing a deck that can make Castow, and then you go thrust.
Okay, on Harpy's Feather Storm. If you control a wind winged beast monster until the end of this turn to get any monster effects your opponent activates. I've never heard of this card before. Wow. If you control a Harpy monster, you can activate this card from your hand. If this card and its owner's spell and trap card zone is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can add one Harpy's Feather Duster for your deck or graveyard to your hand. Why? No, that card shouldn't be a thing. That's too strong.
Into Harpy's Feather Storm. How is that okay? Also, let's talk about the fact that these turn skip cards are crazy going first. And going first is already too broken to begin with. I just feel like as soon as one deck does it, there's the need for every single one of the other decks to do it too. So again, like I keep emphasizing, I think all of these cards should be addressed in one way or another, because God knows going first is crazy already.
And you shouldn't... The problem, like... There shouldn't be that much of an advantage. Sorry, I'm getting so many text messages depending on what you... I'm muting my phone. There we go. There should, like, it shouldn't be part of the game where it's like you rely on a coin flip and like that matters that much at the beginning of the game. Oh, the person who goes first has like this much of a grand advantage. You guys remember back in the day when that wasn't a thing? Like, initially it was, and then they like, there was that time period, I don't remember when that happened, when the first player going first couldn't draw an extra card. I thought that was excellent. You actually had people going second when that came about. You know there's a problem with the game when oftentimes it matters like that much. It's like, oh, we're going to coin flip, we're going to do rock, paper, scissors, whatever it is, and whoever goes first has like this grand advantage. That's ridiculous.
We don't need more broken cards. So I want to talk about today something I already touched upon a little bit in the topic I was just talking about, which is how tough it really is to go second. We had formats where there was more back and forth and you actually had a way of going second. If you compare the last couple of Raizio dominated formats to Snake Eyes before that, going second was practically impossible. If Snake Eyes resolved their full combo, you truly weren't winning because there were just physically too many interactions and you needed very, very specific cards.
Now, why? This is where I sit down and I think, like, okay, why aren't all of these things banned then? What, like, why were they allowed to actually get into the game? And then you can get into the entire conversation about power creep and things like that, or maybe Konami just wants to make money where it's like, hey, you're going to need all these cards. Everybody spends their money. Ban. Okay. We need, or if they don't ban it, we need something even stronger than that. Everybody spends their own money. That card gets limited. And it's just like a rinse and repeat cycle. They might just want your money in general.
Going second became even harder because of one card combos. So yes, our topic is one card combos. And I know at this point, this is pretty much a triggering expression to you guys and to me as well. Because
if anybody could, shed some light on that, I would appreciate it, because I don't see the issue with critiquing something like that.
As soon as Konami introduced one card combos into the game, this really snowballed out of control. From how heavy decks became on the non-engine to how tough it is to actually interact, everything shifted, everything changed, and it's just super hard to compete.
Yeah, this game is no longer like the back and forth strategy chess type game that it used to be, and that's something that one of the reasons why I fell in love with this game personally, and this change was one of the reasons why I fell out of love with the game. How many decks are there now where you just need to memorize like a couple specific combos and that's really it? Okay, I need to get these cards out and this card gets this card out, that card gets this card out, and then that card gets this card out. There's like no grand thought process behind anything anymore, and I know there is still strategy within the game. It's just, it's not nearly what it used to be.
Period. Because multiple things happen. Number one, you can't really disrupt your opponent with one or two well-timed hand traps. You need more, because a one-card combo is exactly that. You have 4 other cards to extend further, or have hand traps for your opponent's turn if they interrupt you enough, but you're probably winning. And another thing is that because you need to play all of these hand traps, you're so heavy on a non-engine when you're building your deck, you're either completely ruining your consistency, which is quite a problem, or you come to the conclusion that you just cannot compete with that particular deck you chose.
And that's another big issue too. I hate hand traps in general. I don't like them. I've come around to pendulums just a little bit, but hand traps, the one card combos and links, I hated all of it, dude. I hated all of it. And it's one of the reasons, again, why I fell out of love with the game. But what was that last thing she mentioned? Sorry, I was about to
Or you come
talk
to the
something.
conclusion that you just cannot compete with that particular
Oh,
deck.
yes. And now you can't even build archetypes. Like, you remember back in the day when you would see, like, a weird deck pop out, like, winning a regional or something, where it's like, nobody ever heard of this deck, and it's, like, a strategy that somebody kind of came up with? That type of thing no longer, if rarely, exists. Like, you could, like, part of the game that was fun was so many people, like, having these different cards, different ideas, different strategies. You can't do that anymore. You barely have your archetype functioning without having to fill your deck with these hand traps to just stop the broken decks from doing what they're doing.
You chose. And it feels like they truly stopped introducing decks that have 2 to 3 card combos. If you think about Mitsurugi before it became this crazy version of Mitsurugi right now with all the support cards, you actually had to think about what was in your hand and how you can continue playing, because there wasn't one particular set 1-card combo.
That's my point. There's no thought process behind that anymore. You could have all of these different options. You have to consider what your opponent's going to be doing, but now it's just like, okay, I got this, that means this, and that means that, and then I win.
And the deck was still crazy broken. So this just goes to show that we don't need 1-card combos for decks to do well. In my opinion, if 1-card combos cease to exist, then we go back and print decks and support that actually feel more interactive and easily beatable. This is the way forward. Because what happens when you're in a meta with a lot of non-engine present in decks? Hand comparison, hand trap wars, and that's never a good thing. Because it comes down to who opens better. And a lot of times we have to realize that when we're losing, it's not always because our hands are bad. We make mistakes, we misplay, we don't play out our hands optimally.
Now, this is a question that I have for people who are still invested in the modern game, because again, I'm still in a state of learning. Is that not a thing anymore? If you lose, like, from an outside perspective, that seems to be what it is with all, like, how busted a lot of these cards are, where if you lose, there's really nothing you can do about it. Where back in the day, when I was playing competitively, you'd be like, oh, I should have played this. Perhaps I shouldn't have attacked when I knew that my opponent might have had this type of thing. Poor example, but you kind of get my point of what I'm getting at.
And break a board. There's a whole lot of reasons why we might be losing. However, there are instances when you just cannot or could not do anything differently, and your opponent literally just had that hand trap or an out or an answer that really stops you in your tracks. And with the amount of non-engine in the meta right now, these kinds of scenarios keep happening and they are much more frequent, and that's a big problem.
And that's something that I've noticed throughout the years. It's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, and I have no reason to believe that it's not going to continue to get worse.
With that, I also want to segue into the next topic, which is number 3 on today's list of issues, and that's the fact that, and yes, it is a fact, that board breakers are less and less impactful compared to hand traps. So are board breakers actually losing their purpose? Because with the crazy boards that are getting built right now, you cannot, I think, imagine a scenario where you play a going second deck with a bunch of board breakers.
Okay, hang on. I need to look up what a board breaker is. I was thinking like maybe she was going to explain it, but maybe this is something that I'm not familiar with. So it says a board breaker in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card or combination of cards used to dismantle an opponent's established board of monsters and other cards, typically when going second in a duel. These cards are designed to overcome strong boards, which often feature multiple powerful monsters with negating or disruptive effects, allowing the player to use the board breaker to make their own plays and potentially secure an OTK. Okay, that is ridiculous.
And yes, let me stop right here. I know Gem Knight did crazy well at NEWCQ with board breakers. That is definitely the case. But you have to keep in mind that in a lot of instances, there are multiple reasons why a deck does well. In the case of Gem Knight, people maybe don't really know how to disrupt it. It's fairly new. It was the correct event to play that deck, but there's something to be said about the fact that this is the only deck that can comfortably, or quite comfortably, try and go second with board breakers.
Interesting. So I'm not familiar with the Gemini archetype, but yeah, that's existed since the beginning of time. All of a sudden, there's this brand new, like, strong archetype that comes out, and all of a sudden it's placing in tournaments. That makes sense. People aren't used to playing it, and people kind of get, like, they kind of get stopped in their tracks. They think too hard, make mistakes, things like that.
And that's the big issue. Looking ahead into the future, and I know I haven't touched much on the future just yet, the decks that are coming out in Justice Hunters, I think, are going to shift the meta drastically. So we'll see and maybe revisit this issue in a month or 2 months time to see if things actually changed for the better.
Now, I would love to know what you guys, if anybody else could shed some light in the thoughts in the comments down below. And by the way, I'll say this right now. I'm sorry I haven't been getting to the comments nearly as much, guys. I run multiple channels, and I've been getting to a point in 2 of my bigger channels where people are, watching all of the old content on there. So I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with comments over here, but I will work to do better. If you could comment down below and tell me why people start to think like this new pack is going to change things. I'm not involved in that conversation. I'd love to know.
Because there are decks that actually get quite hurt by some board breakers. I still do think, though, with one-card combos, crazy extension possibilities that decks have, you need to play hand traps because you're not realistically going to be breaking boards. And it's crazy to think that in recent years, cards like Forbidden Droplet, Dark Ruler, etc., Lightning Storm, Thrust were released, and they are not doing enough for us to be comfortable to play board breakers over hand traps. And that really says something about it.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that board breakers are a thing. I don't like that. I don't like hand traps. There are so many things that I would just like complete. Dude, that'd make for a good video sometime, actually. That'd make for a pretty good video, like everything that I would change about the game. Hey, you know what? Back in the day, like, I just actually, depending on what channel you're coming from, I have this series that I've done within my Fortnite channel where it's like the complete guide to fixing Fortnite 2024, the complete guide to fixing Fortnite 2025, where we break down everything that you possibly could break down about the game and what I would change for the better. I just did that for fixing MMA and the UFC. Now maybe we could do YuGiOh.
The current format. Staying on topic of hand traps, because that's pretty much the talk of today's video, apparently. Let's talk about something that, trigger warning, is very much present in this current format, and that is Droll and Lockbird. Now, I could probably make a whole video on its own about this card and what people think, whether or not it should be banned or not, but a lot of times people say that presence of Droll in the format says a lot about the format and how unhealthy it truly is.
Okay, interesting. I never thought about it that way. I'm very familiar with Droll and Lockbird, and I always thought it was a thing that never really fell out of relevancy. As much as I do hate hand traps, that card always kind of seemed to be necessary, but maybe there's a lot of decks that I've missed out on that like aren't adding cards from the deck to the hand nearly as much, but again, maybe that's because I'm not like as invested in the modern game right now.
I would love to know your thoughts, so please let me know in the comments. Should Droll be banned, or is it okay to exist? So is Droll...
I think get rid of the hand traps. Get rid of the vast majority of them. Max C's all right. And that's pushing it. That's pushing it.
Oh, and also mistaken arrest, because people do play that too. A type of lockdown turn skip card like the ones we talked about before, or do we need it because decks are that crazy? It's a problem because a lot of times other decks and strategies are going to suffer when cards like Droll and, for example, that used to be Shifter too, are present in the format to beat specific decks. Should we have Droll in our binder for any kind of format that arises? Or should this card just be banned because it's literally preventing you from playing? Like,
again, any card with the exception of something that's very, very easy to get over, like I mentioned earlier, back in the day, the barrier statues, that's something that we could that I'm totally okay with. But any other card that kind of prevents your opponent from playing, I like. And I know we can take a deeper dive into a bunch of cards, but another thing that I did like was Herald of Perfection. That was fun because while it did stop your opponent from playing, there was strategy behind that. Your opponent had to work to like bait you to discard all of your fairies, and then all of a sudden you can't anymore, and then you're in like a supremely weak state. That type of strategy type thing is very fun. But when you have cards where it's like, oh yeah, I know you like to add cards from your deck to your hand, but we're not doing that now. It's too far with the hand traps, man.
I genuinely want to hear your thoughts and spark a discussion about this but I think one of the biggest problems with both of these cards, that being Droll and Mistaken Arrest, is the fact that you can have them going first after establishing a board.
Yes,
like
yes, that's true. That's very true. I should have thought to mention that. That's a very good point.
Because you're not going to be full-volusing your opponent after making a full board, but with Droll and Mistaken Arrest, you can add that as layered interruption, and I think that's the biggest issue. And with that, I also want to talk about some other cards that are completely crazy going first, and that's why they are limited currently, because they're literally adding things on top of your already established strategy, or rather pushing it through. And I think you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Called by Talents Cross Out.
Oh no. Okay, good, thank God. Oh, Called by the Grave? I haven't seen that card in a while. Target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, until the end of the turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. You know, I don't hate that card. I don't hate that card because it's, I mean, like, I understand that it still goes against, like, what I was saying, like, cards that kind of stop your opponent from playing. But I think that one's, like minimal. You know what I mean? Okay, but then again, like, combining that card with the state of the game right now, perhaps it is a little bit overrated. We also have Triple Tactics Talent. I'm not familiar with that card, and Crossout Designator, that card as well. If your opponent has activated a monster effect during the main phase of the turn, activate one of these effects. Draw 2 cards. Okay. Take control of one monster your opponent controls at the end phase. Look at your opponent's hand, choose 1 card from it to shuffle in the deck. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous card. Alright, we also have Crossout Designator over here. Declare 1 card name, banish 1 of that declared card from your main deck, and if you do, negate its effects, as well as the activated effects and effects of the field of cards with the same original name until the end of the turn. That one's not too bad either, because you're banishing one of your own cards. Like, but then again, with these, I would imagine I can see them being issues within the main game, but like I'm talking like you could fit these back in the day, man. Like that could fit in competitive, but a long time ago. But this card, Triple Tactics Talent, how's that card legal?
These cards are completely crazy, and them being one-offs right now just makes it so they are completely sacky. They decide games on their own, and they make it so your combo goes through when it realistically shouldn't, because like we already established, going second is tough already. And I also get the other side of the coin, because a lot of times a well-timed Charmy or even a Droll, like we already talked about, would completely stop your turn. So at that point, what's more fair? It's very tough to talk about these things because it's not just a black and white issue. Yeah, we kind of need our cards to go through, but like, it's also very broken if I'm called buying your Charmy because you're realistically not winning at that.
I understand what she's saying, but you know what is black and white? If you have a game where going first is such a big damaging issue that you have to like your chances of winning a game, then you have a big problem. That's black and white enough to me.
Point, it's tough because I think when you draw called by, you're super happy, but when it gets played against you, you're literally tilted. And games shouldn't be decided by these types of cards.
That might be the issue, because back in the day when playing competitively, these types of cards wouldn't decide games. But now I guess it's that important, right?
They are, though, and that's very, very unfortunate. There's more to be said on this issue, but for the last topic I want to talk about today is Charmies. Whether or not Charmies are actually healthy.
I'm not familiar with that archetype at all. Let me circle back to that just a little bit, guys. Okay, let's see.
Whether or not...
If you control no cards quick effect, okay, so they're all hand traps. Okay, each time your opponent special summons a monster or monsters from any graveyards or banishment, immediately draw 1 card. Once during its end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than your opponent's cards your opponent controls, +6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck, so the number of your hand equals the number your opponent controls +6. Okay, so they all have that kind of effect too. Each time your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster, immediately draw 1 card. Interesting. Yeah, I don't like those cards. Again, I don't like hand traps at all, dude. Like, again, Maxi was alright. DD Crow was... No, DD Crow's on... Is that a hand trap? Regardless, it's like so minimal, you know what I mean? Back, like, it was okay every once in a while we had it back in the day, but now, like, they removed the use of trap cards.
Charmies are actually healthy, and in my honest opinion, they definitely are. I think Charmies should exist. They should not be semi-limited or limited, because God knows, going second needs help. And Charmies, in my opinion, are fair cards because you cannot layer them on top of a board like we already talked about with Droll.
But I don't want to be running my decks like thinking like, okay, just in case I go second, I need all these Charmy cards, and now that takes up so many spots in my deck. That shouldn't be how it works. No, we just need to nerf going first. We need to, you know, there's a lot of fixing that this game needs.
And mistaken arrest and all of that before. Also think about the fact that when you are playing Charmies, if you have them in your main deck because the format calls for it, which is the case right now, and you're going first, a lot of times they can be dead cards in your opening combo game 1. So that's one problem. They can be dead cards getting drawn into, another problem. And also Purulia.
Sorry, I didn't mean to pause there.
A very specific Charmy. It's not good against every single strategy. So if we're in a format like right now where you need Purulia against certain decks, but it's gonna be a little subpar against others,
but again, these cards shouldn't be requirements for your deck. You should be able to, like, I get that there's been weak matchups over the years. I understand that, and you can't really avoid that. But when there are so many things out there where it's like, just like requires you to change up your main deck that much just so you don't get absolutely steamrolled. I think that's where the problem lies.
Going to have to take that into account when you're deck building and come to terms with the fact that sometimes you're going to be drawing dead cards against certain matchups. So even when it comes to Charmies, there are pros and cons to playing them, even though they're broken cards that a lot of players seem to have issues with. So with all of that being said, I think I've given you quite a few things to think about. And yes, there's no denying that the current format does have issues, but the meta changes and power shifts and improvements happen. So if you are feeling frustrated, you're definitely not alone, but we are getting Justice Hunters. The format is going to shift, and there's
I would love to, if anybody can again shed some light on why people are thinking the format's going to change, and hopefully it's changing in a good way. It's just, I don't know what people are thinking about this new format.
Be another ban list, another meta, and another chance to make the game better. So let me know down in the comments.
Hey, and you know what? I love that optimism. Unfortunately, I don't share that same optimism, but I still thought it was a very good video. I thought the discussion was interesting. I thought the discussion was very fair. And again, I'm vaguely familiar with the channel, but I'll definitely be watching some more content. So please go show some love in the pinned comment description down below. And if you want to keep watching reaction content from me over here, then why don't you check out this other reaction we did to APS Amplifier over here. I would love to have you guys over there. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care, everybody.